Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
All right, what's going on, basketball fans? This is the GSMC Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Foreman. Thanks for coming back in this week. Hopefully you guys had a chance to catch my last podcast. But if not, as you guys know, basketball is back. Hopefully you guys have gotten a chance, to sit down, watch some of these games. It's really feeling like a playoff atmosphere already. And to remind you, we're not in the playoffs quite yet. We're only in these 8 seeding games. So the playoffs have yet to begin, yet it seems like they already have. So that's a great sign of what's to come, I think, for the NBA and the bubble. Like I said before, the bubble itself looks fantastic. It looks great. All the players are safe. We have 0 corona positive tests, so all the players are safe. They're going through the proper quarantine. So props to the NBA. The games look great. Like I said, the intensity is fantastic. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to sit down and watch some of these games. But let's go ahead and get down to business and talk about what today's show is going to look like. I want to start out by talking about Devin Booker and, those Phoenix Suns, also a team, I've been kind of doing that recently, trying to do this recently. The Phoenix Suns are also a team that aren't always in the news, not a team, the media always is talking about. So I want to discuss Booker and the Suns. I also want to discuss, the second team in Los Angeles, if you will, the Los Angeles Clippers, their slow start in these seeding games. I want to discuss that. And I also want to discuss Carmelo Anthony, okay? What he's been doing in Portland and, possibly what next year might look like for him if he sticks around and, because in my opinion, his stock has gone up in Portland. So I want to talk about what he's done there and what he could do, where he might go next season. And then make sure you stick around to the very end of the show, because I'm going to be giving you guys an update on that race for the 8th seed in the Western Conference. We know how close it is. The games are fantastic, like I said, so the games are super close. The race is as close as ever, so I'm going to give you guys an update on that race for the 8th seed. Who wants to play the Lakers in the first round, basically? So let's get to the first topic of the day. Like I said, Devin Booker, those Phoenix Suns, off to a very hot start. The Suns were actually the very first team to be 3-0 in the Orlando bubble, so props to those Suns. A team everybody seemed to underestimate. They saw the Suns on the schedule, at least I did, and I saw that as an easy win, especially for a team like the Clippers, like what I'm going to discuss, though. But like I said, surprising, but either way, Suns are the first team to be 3-0. Props to them. They beat the Wizards, the Mavericks, and the Clippers. So 2 out of the 3 are playoff teams, and 2 out of the 3 are pretty good teams. One of them might even be the best team in the league. So the Suns beat them, and they're obviously being led by their 5-year guy in Devin Booker, a guy who I think should have or could have been an all-star this year. Really depends on who you like. He could have been tossed in that mix. I think he could have been. But against the Wizards, dude had 27 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. Ayton gave him 24 points, 12 rebounds, 2 blocks. Rubio, my man Rubio, I used to like him a whole lot when he was in Minnesota. I like that he's in Phoenix now, kind of starting that offense, running the offense. He's getting 15. He got them 15-9 against the Wizards. So a good team effort. They beat clearly the inferior team in the Washington Wizards. Then they go on to play the Dallas Mavericks. Booker plays very well, again, even better than the night before, gets 30 points, a couple of three-pointers, makes a lot of free throws. He plays very well, and they overcome, despite not being, similar to the, when the Rockets beat the Mavericks, they did not quite look like the better team for most of the game. That usually is the case for people who play the Mavericks. But when it comes up late, the Mavs have a tough time finishing in crunch time, getting it done. So that's when the teams really seem to get ahead in crunch time. Similar to what the like I said, the Rockets did. The Suns did the same thing to the Mavericks. Luka played great, had 40 points, like 8 rebounds, 11 assists, or vice versa. But they simply basically choked late in the ball game, couldn't get it done. The Phoenix Suns take advantage of that. They know about their poor record. In crunch time, so they take advantage of that and get the win. And then they go on to play the Los Angeles Clippers, arguably the best team in the league. And, it's not a situation like where the Brooklyn Nets, they recently beat the Milwaukee Bucks, but then when you look at the box, the box score, the stats, you see Giannis only played 16 minutes. Chris Middleton played 16 minutes. 2 vital guys played, a very small portion of the game, slightly over a quarter. So that's why they end up losing by a couple of points. No, it wasn't that case though. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard both played high minutes, both played high in the 30s, 35, 36, minutes. Both of them both played. And the Suns still got away from, and got the win from arguably the best team in the league. Booker got 35 points, 8 assists, hit 6 3-pointers, 6 threes. And as we all know, you've seen the highlights by now, I'm sure. We saw that game-winning shot at the buzzer over Paul George, over Kawhi Leonard. Excuse me. Arguably 2 of the best defenders in the entire league. He made the game-winning shot over both of them. So we know the difficulty of the shot there. He made it, with the game on the line, no time left on the clock. He makes the shot over those 2 guys. DeAndre Ayton got 19 points, 7 rebounds. Rubio contributed with 18, 3 3-pointers. And, don't think Kawhi played a pretty good game. He went and got 27 points, got some rebounds, a couple of assists. Paul George didn't shoot the best from the floor, but still got 23 points, only like 1 for 7 from the 3-point line. But, he didn't shoot great, but, they played pretty well overall. Lou Williams did only play, he played like 20 something minutes, so that's less than what he usually plays. It's his first game back. He only had like 7-8 points, so obviously they're used to getting a large, bit of points, a lot of contribute. He contributes at least 20, almost 20 points per game. They're also still missing Montrezl Harrell, so that does contribute to the loss. But either way, we see Devin Booker in the wins, getting the game-winning bucket and beating arguably the best team in the entire league, or the best team, in the West. So they go and do that. But my biggest question for this team after this 3-0 start, after looking, so good, is where was this play exactly in the regular season? They're only ranked 16th in offense and 19th in defense. So, very mediocre stats there. They're right in the middle of the league. So nothing great, nothing too bad, but nothing really to talk about, So, not a whole lot to talk about as far as their offensive and defensive stats. But as far as who they've played and who they've beaten this year, it's kind of impressive. They've beaten the Clippers twice now, if we're counting that seeding game, which we are. They've beaten the Celtics, the Rockets, the Mavericks, and the Milwaukee Bucks and the Milwaukee Bucks. I think the Mavericks maybe twice now. And the Milwaukee Bucks. So the Bucks, Clippers, Rockets, Celtics, and Mavs. The Suns have beaten them this year. Devin Booker is averaging 26 points, 6.5 assists. I think he should have been an all-star. But either way, or like I said earlier, he was capable of being an all-star. The stats were in his favor, but didn't get the votes, probably because of the bad record, similar to Bradley Beal. He not getting the votes to be an all-star, probably not going to get the votes to be on All-NBA, even though he averaged 30 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. Simply because the Washington Wizards had a bad record. Had a bad record, and similar to the Phoenix Suns and Devin Booker, they have a bad record. People don't exactly vote him in. They see that as a reflection of him. Even though he has been one of the bright spots on the team, having, hitting the most game winners in the last 5 years, since, him and LeBron have the most game winners in the last, I'm comfortable in 5 years. I want to say 3 to 5 years. I saw that stat. So he's a clutch player. He's averaging 26 points. He's a great shooter, a great player. But the Suns overall, it can't come down to just Devin Booker. They are missing a piece and a veteran. Okay, they were invited to the bubble. Okay, that doesn't go to anybody. It happens because they were 6 games back from that 8th seed, playing 8 games. If they win all 8, let's say they go 8-0. Okay, and these teams are still slacking. They could quite possibly end up making it, but they have a rather tough schedule. I'll get to that in a second. But like I said, the 6 games back from the 8 seed, they get invited to the bubble. And like I said, they're a pretty good team. They're definitely underachieving with Ayton, Booker. They have Kelly Oubre, who hasn't played a whole bunch in the bubble. Ricky Rubio. So they have multiple guys who can contribute. I know I'm missing several guys. Saric is also coming off their bench. So they have multiple guys who can play. Simply needing one more all-star, almost caliber piece. Really a shame they got rid of TJ Warren. That would be fantastic right now on the Phoenix Suns, honestly. The fact they got rid of him for cash, and then they also traded a pick is laughable, honestly. And they could really use a guy like TJ Warren right now, and just in general. They're really wishing they did not do that trade. Either way, they did. They are missing one veteran piece. I don't necessarily see them make an 8th spot, but they definitely are a team that is close to, and a team that needs to take that next step. Like I said earlier, it's Booker's 5th season in the league. It's going to be, next year will be his 6th, and next year will be Ayton's 3rd year in the league. So they have some room to grow, that they need to start winning. Both are putting up decent stats, especially Booker. Ayton is definitely putting up decent stats now. But now, years in the league, we're cool with the stats after a couple of years. Now it's time to show us you can win. How good are you actually, how good of a player are you? Because winning is really what matters when it comes down to it. Not necessarily everything, because those personal stats do matter a whole bunch, but if you just have those and no other accolades to go with it, you're not going to be put with some of the all-time guys who are known for winning more than anything. So they need to start winning. They have 2 all-star caliber players, in my opinion, like I said, in Booker and Ayton eventually in the future. If we'll see how the center position goes, but he's an all-star caliber type player on offense and defense. They got a new coach in Monty Williams. He's looking pretty good developing these young players. But, also, I forgot about this. They're going to have a decent pick coming forward. Nothing great. Obviously, they're in the bubble, so it won't be like a very high lottery pick unless they just get lucky. I'm not even sure if they'll be in the lottery. But anyway, probably won't be. Anyway, They will have a first round pick. Won't be a a great pick, but it won't be a bad one necessarily. So a team like, let's say, the Cleveland Cavaliers, who has a star like an aging star, or veteran like Kevin Love, who won a first round pick, could trade Kevin Love for a first round pick or earn someone else off your bench or something like that. I'm not saying they go and get Kevin Love. I'm not sure how great a fit that would be. It could be a pretty good fit. A veteran with outside scoring could get you 18 points, 12 rebounds, or 8 rebounds, so he could be a good fit for them, 16 points. So he could be a good fit in Phoenix, quite actually. But either way, they need, I say you flip the pick, you try to get a veteran. Like I said, they seem to be one piece away to making a jump. Booker's developing every year, same with Ayton. I say you go and get a veteran point guard or something like, someone who can run the offense, put Booker and Ayton in the correct spots. And what about a guy like Chris Paul? It's obvious the Thunder, despite him playing great this season, I'm sure they would be open to a deal if they made it worth their while. I really think he could help the Suns, the flow of the offense on defense, and he could put Booker, Ayton in the correct spots, and just a veteran presence. So Chris Paul would be amazing, but I really don't see that. I see Chris going somewhere else, maybe staying in OKC, then perhaps going somewhere else, but I don't necessarily see that, but I would love to see that happening. I say they need to trade that first round pick, because Devin Booker truly does need some help. He really needs help. He can't do it all on his own. 26 points, 6.5 rebounds. He's playing good basketball. Simply needs more around him. One more piece, like I said, to help contribute to winning. Props to them for the 3-0 start so far. Very impressive. And, like I said, they're the first team to do it. They're going up tonight. They're going up against the Indiana Pacers, the only other 3-0 team so far. Raptors are 2-0, but the only other 3-0 team so far. So we'll see. Can Booker and the Suns keep up this hot streak and beat, take down the Pacers despite TJ Warren and the hot streak he has had, dropping 50 in the ball. I talked about it in my last podcast, but can the hot streak of the Suns continue, or will the hot streak of TJ Warren and the Pacers continue? Either way, one of those undefeated teams will fall and have one in the loss category. So, props to the Phoenix Suns for what they're doing so far. They need to make a couple moves if they want to be in playoff contention going forward. And if they want to be in the playoffs this year, they need to basically win out. They have a tougher schedule going forward, but I still think they could get it done. We'll see. Phoenix is looking pretty good right now. Props to Devin Booker. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break. When I come back, let's talk about the other team in Los Angeles, those Los Angeles Clippers, and their start so far in the bubble. Don't go anywhere.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, guys, welcome back. Like I said before the break, I want to talk about those Los Angeles Clippers. Yeah, the Clippers. You heard me right. All year, at least on paper, for me, they have looked like the best team in the league, in the entire league. Over the Lakers, over the Bucks. Yes, I think on paper, on paper, they are the best team in basketball. I'm not quite sure you can dispute that, really. But, it depends how well players mesh on the court. It isn't always about on paper. We've seen it before. It's not just about that. But all year they've looked like it. We've seen it in certain matchups. They've played like it in certain stretches. But right now in the bubble so far, they are off to a bit of a slow start. But I want to tell the Clipper fans right away, don't worry. Okay, don't worry. Let me tell you why. Okay, let me break this down. So now they are 1-2. Okay, they're 1-2 in their seeding games. They lost to the Lakers and the Suns. Lost to the Lakers by 2 points. Lost to the Phoenix Suns by 2 points. Okay. Both teams, the Lakers and the Suns, had game-winning shots. Lakers, it was under 10 seconds. LeBron hits it could be under 5. LeBron hits the game-winning, bunny from in low. And obviously we know, I just talked about it, Devin Booker, props to D-Book, talking about him again, but I just talked about him in my last segment. But, he hits the game-winning shot over Kawhi and Paul George. Again, they lose by 2 points and a game-winning shot, which if it rims out, they go to overtime, and they're the veteran team, they probably win the game. But they lose. They lose to the Lakers. They lose to the Suns. I want to tell you another stat. They haven't had their full lineup, their full rotation for more than, 12... It was 11 games in the regular season. They haven't had their full lineup in these seeding games quite yet. Maybe early, so maybe I'll say 12 to 13, 12 to 15 games. So they haven't had their full lineup more than 12 to 15 games this season, we'll say. They've had injuries, recently especially. They've had new trades, new signings, the Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson, Joakim Noah. They've had multiple recent signings. And also, like I said, that they've only had their full rotation that they've had now for no more than 12 to 15 games. And as we know, the Kawhi Leonard way, now the Los Angeles Clipper way, they have been load managing all season. Okay, they have been sitting their players on back-to-backs. If they're a little sore, they'll simply miss a game. They've been overly cautious. Props to them, but they've been overly cautious, you could say, in Los Angeles, especially on the Clippers side. I'm sorry. So load management has been preached all season. So only 12 games. Load management has been preached all season against the Lakers and Suns. Only lost by 2 games. So let's keep all that into consideration. In the games against the Lakers, again, they did not have Lou Williams. They did not have Montrezl Harrell. So right there for the Clippers, 2 6-man of the year candidates this year. It could very well go to either one of them, both deserving of the award. Both are averaging almost 20 points, if not 20 points off of the bench. Lou gets you a handful of assists. Montrezl gets you almost 10 rebounds per game off the bench. So their worth off of the bench is huge. Their value is huge for this team. We saw them in large part be the biggest parts of the team that took the Golden State Warriors to 6 games in the first round of the playoffs last year. So this team, they simply added 2 all-stars, all NBA caliber players to this team. But either way, like I said, no Lou Will, no Montrezl Harrell. That's 40 points off the bench, and you only lose by 2. And let's forget, they had the ball. They had the final possession of the game, the Clippers did. It wasn't a Phoenix Suns Devin Booker situation where he had the final shot. No. LeBron made the shot with several seconds to go. Paul George was able to get a decent look from 3. So they could have won the game, tied the game, force it to overtime. So the ball was in their court to make the play. They couldn't make the play. So it wasn't necessarily, you could say they wouldn't be in that position if they had Lou Will and Montrez. You could very well say that LeBron had an off night as well shooting the ball. So you could say that as well. There are multiple things you can point to, but for the Clippers, it's on black and white on paper. They didn't have 40 points. They were missing 40 points off of their bench. Then they go and play the New Orleans Pelicans. Kawhi and Paul George only play 25, 26 minutes, but Kawhi gets 24 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. Paul George goes and gets 28 points and 8 3-pointers against the young Pelicans in Zion Williamson. So Zion, like we know, only plays 14 minutes, does not play very well. The Clippers manhandle the young Pelicans, beat them by over 20 points, and Kawhi, Paul George rest for over half the game. They look great for the little bit they did play and blow the Pelicans out of the water. So there's a big bright spot for Clipper fans and for the Clippers. You guys blew the Pelicans off of the floor when you played them. Keep that in your back pocket. They then go on to play the Phoenix Suns, which we know they lose to the Suns on a game winner by Devin Booker. They lose by a game winner by Devin Booker. Kawhi goes off. He plays well. 27 points, 7 rebounds. Paul George somewhat struggles. Okay, he has 23 points, but shoots 6 of 17 from the floor. So nothing to rave about from the floor or 3-point range. So he doesn't play well. Kawhi plays okay, and it's a tie game. With seconds to go. Again, they don't play particularly well. Lou Will, it's his first game back, I should tell you, for Lou Williams. It was his first game back. He only plays 20 minutes, and he doesn't play well. He's somewhat gassed after 20 minutes. Rightfully so. He hasn't played in a while. A couple of weeks from sitting in your room will do that to you. But hasn't played in a while. He only gets 7 points. They're still missing Montrezl Harrell. Paul doesn't shoot very well, and they still, if he misses that shot, Devin Booker, they go to overtime with an opportunity to win the game. So, my main message to Clipper fans is do not be worried. Do not be worried, they will be fine. Okay? They have been saying this all season, the Clippers have, all season. They don't really care, it seems like, about the regular season. They really don't seem to care. Can you really blame them? Kawhi load managed all season last year, and now he has 2 championships and has 2 finals MVPs. Okay? And off of load managing, and obviously you can only do that if you have a very good roster, which Kawhi did have, which he does have right now with the Clippers. Okay, so you can only really do that all the time if you have players who can back it up when your star players do sit. So you need that. That's an important element to it. But either way, Kawhi has that. He's been sitting out all season. Kawhi sits back-to-backs. Him, Paul George, Patrick Beverley, it seems like. They've been load managing all season. Okay, all season. Lakers also, remember, the Lakers already have the number 1 seed locked up. The number 1 seed is already the Los Angeles Lakers. That's locked up. They have no chance of doing that. And boo-hoo, okay? I don't think they really care too much about it. If they really wanted the 1 seed, I think they would have went and got it. It was clear the Lakers wanted that more than the Clippers did. So the Lakers go out and get it. Good for the Lakers. Props to them for getting that number 1 seed locked up. But they have no thrive. They have no motivation, to really win a lot of these seeding games. Their spot's pretty much locked up, and if they drop down a spot or so, boo-hoo. They're still arguably the best team in the league. That matchup, one more spot down, isn't that big a deal. It's super close in the Western Conference, so if they drop down, boo-hoo, they can't move up anymore. So I think the Clippers, they will be fine. Do not worry, Clipper fans. They're going to be just fine. They just got back Lou Will, like I said. They just got back Zubats, Landry Shamet. They have yet to get back Montrezl Harrell. So hopefully if you guys get him back, there's no worries. That's the only worry right now for the Clippers roster. It seems like he was a pretty vital piece to that team. Despite how deep they are a little low on the big man side. So he was important to that team. His role, his worth is definitely being shown. All the players like Lou Will and Montrezl, their worth is definitely being shown, with them struggling without them a little bit early, definitely proving their worth. Like I said, still missing 18 points off the bench for Montrezl. He'll be back hopefully eventually. But once the playoffs start, once the first tip-off of the NBA postseason begins, I guarantee we see a change of pace of basketball, of intensity for this Clipper team. I think they're going to start playing very well when the postseason starts. That's what they really care about, and if that's what we see, I think that's that's proven what we've been saying, that they don't really care about the regular season. They've simply been waiting for the postseason to turn it up. So that's what I'm predicting. That's what I think is going to happen for this Clipper team. I could be wrong. But when you're looking at this team on paper, they have Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Montrezl Harrell, Lou Williams, Patrick Beverley, Landry Shamet, Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris. There are so many good players on this roster. They are so deep. The only thing, going against them is time together. They don't have that much time together. Like I said, only 12 or 15 games. They have played at full strength. The more games they play together, the better they're going to be. They have yet to hit their peak. I'm guessing we see some of this peak basketball once the postseason begins. I'm excited to see what they can do. Can they just plow through the playoffs and prove they are the most dominant team, or will they have some struggles early? Will they lose a couple of games in the first round? Will they plow through like some people think they will? I'm really excited and intrigued to see how the Clippers do. As much as anyone in this postseason. So that's my thing about the Clippers. Don't worry, Clipper fans. Despite having, despite being 1-2 so far, you guys should not necessarily worry. You got plenty. You got another 6 seeding games. You have multiple practices together. Your guys are still coming back together. No one's probably going to leave the bubble from here on out. Whenever people come back, I doubt we see anyone necessarily leaving, because like I said, we're getting into that postseason. We're about to be getting into that postseason within the next week or so. Super excited for that. I bet you guys are as well. Super pumped for the playoffs to begin. I just talked about it, or I'm going to talk about, my very last segment. So make sure you stick around for that. That race for the 8th seed, how close it really is. So stick around for that. But coming up next, I want to talk about the guy in Carmelo Anthony, a guy so many people in the league wrote off, said he couldn't play, couldn't fit into a system. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I want to discuss him on the Portland Trailblazers, and I want to discuss him going forward next season. Where could he potentially fit? Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, guys. Like I said before the break, I want to go ahead and discuss a guy in Carmelo Anthony, a multi-time, I can't even count it on my hands how many times he's been an all-star. He's a scoring champ, has yet to be an MVP or a champion by any means, but Carmelo Anthony, a very impressive career so far. He's continuing to add, to his career. Now, in a different role, a very different role, in Portland than what he is used to. But ever since, let's talk about a guy in Carmelo. So ever since, he left New York, he's been a different player, okay? Even at the end of New York, he was fading, and he was turning into a different player. No longer, a star, just a good player in the league, okay? Can definitely, still play in the league by any means, but no longer the superstar that Carmelo Anthony was at Madison Square Garden for the New York Knicks. He was no longer that in his last time, in his last days in New York. So he was no longer that. He then gets moved on, gets traded to OKC, or gets released and signs with OKC. And right from the get-go, everyone kind of called it. It really didn't seem like a good fit from the get-go, and it wasn't. They really seemed to force this big three with Westbrook, Paul George, Carmelo Anthony. No one really saw their games meshing together, and we were all correct. They ended up losing in the first round, despite having that much, talent on their roster. Like I said, it wasn't aging. Melo couldn't quite accept his role quite yet like he has now. But it seemed like a bad fit from the get-go. Like I said, they forced the big three. They get a first round exit. Then he goes to the Houston Rockets. And from at the start, at least when he first went there, it really did seem like it was a good fit, a smart fit for him as well as the Houston Rockets. Okay, it really seemed like they would have fit. He's with his friend in Chris Paul. James Harden is playing fantastic. He simply needs to stand out on the wing, hit some 3-pointers, hit some jump shots, play some okay defense, and that's what they needed from him. And that's basically what he did. Okay, he I think played his role exactly. What they were wanting. He averaged 13 points, 6 rebounds. They had him coming off the bench sometimes, which he hated, so the tensions were bad there. So he only plays 10 games. Well, I thought it was 15. He only plays 10 games in Houston with his buddy Chris Paul and James Harden. We know later on they end up trading Chris Paul, so tensions, started to get a little high when Carmelo got there and got shipped out. Obviously, Chris Paul, his friend, didn't think he was treated maybe 100% rightly or, fairly. And that possibly starts tension in that Houston locker room. Who knows? Maybe that's what started it. Either way, he plays decent, 13 points, 6 rebounds, but after 10 games, they just cut him. They simply cut him, don't try to trade him anywhere. There's no big market for him. They cut him. He's a free agent, and ever since then, for an entire season, for a lot of this season, he was a free agent on the open market. We saw videos of him shooting in open gyms, looked super good, wearing hoodies and stuff like that, but no team signed him, no bidders. Okay, and eventually, Portland, having all of the injuries they did at the power forward position, at the wing position, they were really low at that position, at that, place on the floor, needing a guy like Carmelo, a veteran experienced guy who can come in and get you 15 to 20 points, on the wing. So that he was exactly what they wanted. But for a long time, it really didn't seem like he was going to be on a team. I don't know if you guys agree with me there, but maybe you guys had a little more hope for him than I did, but I really did not quite seem like he was going to be on a team going forward, or maybe ever again, and it was really upsetting thinking, man, this might be the last time, we might have seen the last time Carmelo played. But I'm super happy Portland gave him this chance. Either way, like I said, Portland, they were needing a scorer and a veteran. Just his presence. They go ahead and sign him to a 1-year deal. And in my opinion, I think he has thrived in his role. He's accepted his role, and he's playing very well. He's exceeded my standards, a lot of people's standards, in my opinion. And I'm more than impressed. I'm super happy for him and Portland. And he's a big reason they're, back in that playoff race for that 8th spot, which again, I'm going to talk about after this segment in my final one. But like I said, he's a huge reason why. He's averaging 15 points, 6 rebounds, and, for a guy who people said couldn't shoot 3-pointers, he's averaging 38% on 3-pointers this season. So he's playing very well. He has added the part of his game which everyone said he needed to, the 3-point shot. He's hitting threes at a high level, it seems like. Like I said, 38%, 15 points, 6 rebounds. Like I said, he's helping Portland get back on that 8th spot race. And in his last 2 seeding games, okay, he has hit very big shots, huge shots to seal victories for the Trail Blazers, okay? I know it was against the Houston Rockets. I'm blanking on the team they played before then. But either way, he hit some big shots in back-to-back games in crunch time. He proved he still has that clutch gene, that clutch factor. He also proved that he has that 3-point arsenal. He added that to his game at 38%, almost 48% from the 3-point line. Not something you've seen from Carmelo in a long time. So he's shooting, the best from the floor that he has in a long time. He's added that to his arsenal. He's playing super well in Portland, and I hope they make, I did bet on the Pelicans over them because of the severity of their schedule, but I bet on the Pelicans to make that 8th spot. But I could very well see them making that. I hope he, keeps thriving in this role. But where else could he go? I know it's pretty obvious, at least it is to me. His stock has gone up, while he has been in Portland, throughout his time there. His stock has risen, rightfully so. He's proven he can adjust in this league, and he can, take whatever role that is given to him. He likes to start. He doesn't like the role coming off the bench. Maybe as he gets older, he'll accept that. But as of now, he wants to start, rightfully so. But are there any good fits for him next season? Does he stay with Portland? I would very well, I'd be cool with that. But are there any other potential landing spots for the, older veteran star? I think there might be a couple. I don't know how great all these fits would be, but I was researching it and thinking about it for a little bit, and, these teams were the ones to come to mind. Me, why not Golden State? Why not Golden State? They lost Kevin Durant. Okay, they're needing, I'm not saying Carmelo Anthony is Kevin Durant by any means, nowhere near. But he can still go out there and get you 15 points, okay? He's a wing, which they need a scoring wing. They need scoring. They need a wing. Okay, they're undersized, but they like being small, but still, they need more veterans. They have a whole lot of young guys as well, so some more veteran experience would help for that Golden State team. He'd be playing with Steph, Clay, Wiggins, and Draymond, so he'd be having, a whole lot of wide open shots. The only possible downside to him is he going to stop the ball movement? Is he going to be a ball stopper, not a ball mover? Is he going to stop the rotations and go ISO, try to get his mid-range jump shot? I haven't seen that in Portland. It seems like he's bought into that game plan, that system, and moving the ball, finding the right shot, not always isolating, but doing that when he has to. So if he could buy into the Golden State moving the ball system, why couldn't he go to Golden State? Okay, he's a veteran. It might be a veteran minimum deal. Maybe he sent a smaller, cheaper deal just so he can keep playing. And he helps you possibly win a championship. He gets his first championship, so that would be awesome. I would love to see that. The scoring veteran presence, definitely Golden State would need that. Could he buy in to the system? If he could, why not Carmelo Anthony to Golden State? Another team, the Los Angeles Lakers, okay? We saw him possibly joining them. That was up in the air, up in the media this year. Is he going to join his friend in Los Angeles? That got shot down. because he had yet to prove himself. I think he has proved himself in Portland. The Lakers needing scoring more than ever right now, but obviously that couldn't happen. But still, needing scoring. If he can do what he's doing this season, next season, why not put him with LeBron James, with his friend, playing together both in their 18th season? So why not add some more offense to that team, which they are needing? Possibly a guy who can step up when you need it, can hit a clutch shot, can hit a 3-point shot. Also, like I said earlier, maybe a veteran minimum deal, kind of a cheaper deal, because we know that Laker cap is pretty much busted, is pretty much full, or is looking that way. So a veteran minimum deal with Carmelo Anthony would help them a whole bunch on the offensive side and help their checkbook. So it would help them in those two areas, not so much on defense, but if he could buy into them, he can go ISO, get them a bucket when they need it. When LeBron sits on the bench, he can go score a little bit. So why not go to the biggest stage, all the big lights, go to LA. He goes and plays with his friend both in their 18th season. Why not Carmelo to Los Angeles? I think that might be a pretty cool situation. And one more thing I want to talk about, one more team. Why not the Washington Wizards? Okay, John Wall, Bradley Beal, both coming back supposedly next year. Both coming back, as we've heard. I've talked about it on the show. Both coming back, if not better than ever, as we've heard. That they said that themselves. They both have chip on their shoulders to come back. And Carmelo worked with CJ and Dame. I could argue, overall the talent of John Wall and Bradley Beal could be better than CJ and Dame, because I like Bradley Beal more than Dame. I like Bradley Beal more than CJ, not Dame. I like him more than CJ. I like Dame more than John Wall, but I like both guys over CJ. So that roster, that duo, if he worked with CJ and Dame, I think he could definitely work with the duo like John Wall and Bradley Beal. So I think he could go there and fit somewhat a replica of what he's doing in Portland. Or, like I said earlier, I like him in Portland. He's definitely bought in to his role. He's playing well, and he's a huge part of their success being in the race for this 8th seed. So props to him for buying in. Props to Portland for going out and getting him because like I said earlier, for a long time it seemed like we were not going to see Carmelo in the league again. So it's great to have him back. Props to both parties for getting it done, for buying in. But I would also be okay if he gets a better opportunity somewhere else and moves on. So it really is up to him. I could see him staying and leaving. Those are some good options. I think there are also other options are out there. But I'd love to hear what you guys think of this as well. I want to go ahead and take a quick break. When I come back, I want to discuss that 8th seed in the Western Conference, not the Eastern Conference so much. That really is two turtles kind of running in that race. But let's talk about the Western Conference race for that 8th seed coming up next.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back. Okay, this is the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Like I said before the break, let's go ahead and talk about that 8th spot in the Western Conference, because that race is as close as ever. These games, like I said at the beginning of the show, really do seem like playoff games, playoff type atmospheres already. We're not even in the postseason yet, so hopefully this is just a sign to come and we get even better basketball, if that's possible, in the postseason. But, before we get there, let's go and discuss who might get there in that 8th spot. Obviously, right now, the Grizzlies are still holding on to that 8th seed. I think they have it by 2 games right now. But their lead in the Western Conference in that race is shrinking and shrinking every game that they play. They are so far 0-4. They have yet to win a basketball game in the bubble. So they are not quite looking great. So far, I could say they are looking terrible so far. But I said this before the seeding game started, and this is why, I don't see them holding on to the 8th spot, and I didn't see them before these even started holding on to the spot because of how tough their schedule has been and how tough their schedule is. Okay, they lost to Portland, the Spurs, the Pelicans, and the Utah Jazz. So they lost to 4 teams. I think 4 teams, and maybe the Spurs are better than, but still 4 teams that they are not better than, or 3 teams are not better than. They lose all 4. Some of them are very close, but they lose all 4. Ja can't quite get it done. We're seeing the overachieving Grizzlies kind of showing who they really are, proving they did in fact overachieve this year. It's been a very tough schedule so far. They lost Jaren Jackson Jr. as well to a knee tear, a tear somewhere in his leg or knee. So he's out for the rest of the season. So they lost him. It's not looking great for you Grizzly fans and, for the Memphis Grizzlies. I was very impressed with their play, in the regular season. The fact that they were even in this race, is very impressive that they're ahead of teams like the Suns, the Pelicans, the Trailblazers also. So it's impressive that right now they were ahead of them. But, their lead does nothing but shrink, as the games go on. It's not looking great for that underdog team in Memphis. But then again, for a team like the Portland Trailblazers, they're 1 game behind right now. I thought it was 2. They're only 1 game behind the Grizzlies right now. They're playing very well. Team, like I said before, is 100% healthy. It seems like they seem to be clicking. I talked about it in my last segment. Carmelo is hitting game clinching shots. Nurkic is playing very good. Dame is being Dame. CJ's being himself. So they're playing very good basketball. They're off to a hot start, a 2-1 start as well. So they're playing very good. They beat the Grizzlies, the Rockets. They did lose to the Celtics, but the fact that they beat the Rockets, that was an impressive win for them. It kind of is in the favor of the Lillard argument. He did look like the superior point guard in all of the matchups so far that he's played in. Lillard has looked like the superior point guard in comparison to the Grizzlies and Rockets. So he's looked good. Lillard has. They still have yet to play though. Denver, the Denver Nuggets, the Clippers, the 76ers, the Dallas Mavericks, but they got 1 easy win in the Brooklyn Nets. So they got 4 tough games coming up. Got 1 easy game, but we'll see what they can do. Can they hold on? Can they keep this run going and beat some tough teams? I think they can win a handful of these. Not sure if they can win all of these, but they're only 1 game back so far, so they only have to win a few of them. I have confidence in them, and they're slowly and surely becoming my pick to get that 8th spot. If you've been listening, I have picked the Pelicans, but either way, the Trailblazers are a team that's looking very good right now. Let's see, they have to play Denver, Clippers, Sixers, Mavs, and Brooklyn. The Grizzlies, the team that's 0-4 right now, so far, they still have to play Oklahoma City Thunder, the Toronto Raptors, the Boston Celtics, and the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay? Thunder, Raptors, Celtics, Bucks. Grizzlies might go, I hate to say it, the Grizzlies might end up being 0-8 in these seeding games. I said it before they started. They got a super tough seeding game schedule, and that is the biggest reason why I didn't see them, and I don't see them holding on to that 8th spot. You know, the Spurs have been playing pretty well. They lost in a couple of really close games, but in my opinion, you know, as soon as LaMarcus Aldridge went down, their chances to make that 8th spot. If they had a 100% healthy team, maybe I could see them making that spot, but you know, right now they're one spot ahead of the Pelicans. They lost in a couple of tough games. They still got to play the Jazz. They got to play the Pelicans, which is a pretty key matchup for them and the Pelicans. They got to play the Rockets and then the Jazz again. So they have some tough games in the Jazz and the Rockets as well as the Pelicans. That's going to be tough for them. We'll see if the streak of playoff appearances can continue for Popovich. We know he's been there for 20, 21, 22 straight seasons, straight years. Can he make it 23? In my opinion, the odds are against him, are not in his favor. I think the streak for Popovich and the Spurs come to an end. You know, the Pelicans, like I said, the team I picked originally to make the 8th spot, right now they are in the 11th spot. So it's not looking too good for the Pelicans, but it's not looking terrible. Okay, they had their first 2 toughest games back to back in the Jazz and the Clippers. I lost both of those. They're 1-2 so far. Zion obviously has been on a minutes restriction, but he's expected to be playing more the more they play. He played 25 minutes in the game against the Grizzlies, played very well, 23 points, 7 rebounds. He looked like the better player in the matchup against Ja. So Pelicans are you know, like I said, they had their 2 tough games right out of the get-go, right out of the gate. Zion's minutes are going to increase, and their remaining schedule is pretty easy. Okay, they got the Kings twice. They got the Wizards. They got the Spurs, which is a key matchup, and they have the Magic. So the Kings twice, the Wizards, the Spurs, and the Magic. Very winnable games, a lot of winnable games for the Pelicans. So, I'm not selling my stock in the Pelicans quite yet. They're still my pick to make it, but a team like the Portland Trail Blazers, are my other, you know, I could very well see them making it as well. I think it's between the Pelicans and the Portland Trail Blazers to make that 8th spot. You know, they need to win, in my opinion, the Pelicans do. 4 out of their next 5 to be very comfortable in this race. Right now, they're 2.5 games back. They need to win at least 4, you know, be a couple games ahead. I think Portland's going to continue to win, so they need to win 4 out of the next 5 to be, you know, looking pretty good in this race to overpass both the Grizzlies and the Trailblazers and the Spurs. So they got to keep winning. Other team I want to mention, the Suns, like I talked about earlier, 3-0. You know, they're playing the Pacers tonight. We'll see if who can continue the hot streak. One of the undefeated teams obviously has to fall, but the Suns have to play the Pacers, the Heat, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Mavs, and the 76ers. So tough schedule, but they've already beaten some tough teams, so we'll see. I'm not even ruling out that Phoenix makes the playoffs at this point. If Devin Booker can continue his hot streak and the Suns can continue their hot streak, hey, who knows? I'm not ruling them out. And the Kings are the one team, or one of the few teams like the Spurs, I am really ruling out. I don't think it's the year for the Sacramento Kings. You know, too many other better teams in this league, so it's not Sacramento's year. I think it's up to the Pelicans or the Portland Trail Blazers to get that 8th spot. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to post a poll on social media, so let me know what you guys think about that 8th spot. That's it for the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. Go check us out on Facebook, Twitter. Go ahead and leave us a comment on whatever platform you are listening on. This is my last podcast for the week. I'm going to go ahead and watch some great basketball for the weekend. I'll be right back here on Monday, so don't go anywhere. Stay here at the GSMC Podcast. I'll see you guys on Monday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.